am the president and CEO of the Greater Sacramento Urban League. I am joined by a coalition of a diverse group of leaders and organizations throughout the Sacramento. I want to thank all of my colleagues and all of the coalition members for being here as well. We are delighted to come together for something that we think is very important for not only the city of Sacramento, but for our entire region. I would like to start off with the offset with saying that we have been working in collaboration with the mayor on these proposals within this Accountability and Equity Act that we will speak to you today, but we felt it was important for the community to speak first. So we are here speaking on behalf of the community. I am also personally honored to say that I have spent a career in local government right here in Sacramento. Over nearly 30 years, I have been working with the government, including an assistant city manager. So I can say firsthand how difficult it can be to be nimble and respond to major issues facing our city. And now that our city is growing up and becoming just a larger metropolitan area, it's even more complex. This measure and the proposals that we will institute will be lasting reforms designed to promote racial and equity and gender equity, to bring the government closer to the people and increase transparency and accountability in the city of Sacramento. Specifically, we all are calling for the changes to the city charter that would include the following: require the city to evaluate how every ordinance and budget action will help promote racial and equity and gender equity. Racial equity and gender equity. We're also asking to establish a participatory budgeting process to give the citizens the ability to directly engage with the city's budget and to help set priorities. We're also asking to strengthen and make permanent the City Sunshine Ordinance and Ethics Commission to promote transparency and the hold public officials accountable. We ask and require that $40 million a year be invested in inclusive economic development and youth. We're also requiring that the city evaluate how ordinances and budget actions will help small businesses thrive, not only exist, but thrive. We are asking for reform, the role of the mayor to be the city's chief executive officer, and to make the city manager the chief administrative officer. This and our proposals call for strengthening the city council by creating a council president and vice president, and give the council exclusive authority over land use decisions not involving ordinances. We also are asking to create a 9th council district to be established by the city's Citizen Redistricting Commission following the 2020 census. Now, with regards to reforming the role of the mayor, under this proposal, the mayor would appoint the city manager, subject to the confirmation by the council. The mayor would also propose a budget 90 days before the end of the fiscal year. That position would also have the ability to veto ordinances and budget items subject to 2/3 override vote by the council. And in that role of the mayor, that would also establish and have the ability to remove the city manager. Now, taking all of these proposals together, we believe these reforms represent an evolution of our city into one that is even more inclusive, equitable, and accountable to all of the people. including all the checks and balances to make our city run for all the people. With that, I'd like to then turn over and introduce Rachel Rios, the Executive Director of La Familia Counseling Center, to provide remarks. And Rachel, please unmute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cassandra, and thank you everyone for being here today. The current health crisis and the global pandemic really underscores the need for a city government that is adaptable and able to act decisively. While we have no doubt that our city council and city officials are doing the best they can, we recognize the need to empower our leaders in times like this so that they can act quickly to meet the needs of our community. We also recognize that accountability is the best measure of performance and success, and this measure provides that voters have an opportunity to have voice, to be counted, and to hold our leaders accountable. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Yvonne Walker, President of SEIU Local 1000. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. We believe that it is time for a Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act. And the more recent things that have been happening in our city, we passed Measure U with promises made. Unfortunately, because of the design and the way we're set up, we were not able to keep the promises in the way that they were made. This measure will ensure that there are dedicated funds for our communities, and the community have the ability to hold our mayor and other elected leaders accountable for the investments that we need to succeed. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chet Hewitt, the CEO and President of the Sierra Health Fund. Sorry, Jeff.
Thanks, Yvonne. Yeah, I'm proud to be on this call with my colleagues and to add my voice in support of the Mayor Accountability and Community Equity Act. The pandemic has actually demonstrated not only the ravages of inequality in our city, but has also unveiled how an outdated governance structure limits the ability of the city to nimbly and quickly respond to the needs of its citizens. Today, we say that must change, and we are in support of the structural changes that allow Sacramento to meet the needs of its citizens and to make sure that promises made are promises kept. We believe that this structural reform is long overdue and that it will benefit the most needy of our citizens, even as it takes care of those who are more affluent and who are doing well. Equity can no longer be a term that we use. It has to be a goal that we actively pursue. I'd like to introduce the next speaker, who's Kevin Ferrer, who is Executive Director of the Sacramento and Sierra Buildings Trades Council.
Thank you, Chet. We strongly support the Mayoral Accountability Community Equity Act and believe it comes at the perfect time for our growing city. Our unions provide job opportunities and second chances to many underserved individuals in Sacramento's lowest income neighborhoods. And that's why we proudly support the $40 million annual commitment to inclusive economic development that will ensure that our future economic growth will be better served, often left behind neighborhoods. Excuse me. Additionally, we believe this proposal of governance changes will make the city more effective and efficient, particularly when it comes to creating jobs and putting people back to work. Our unions proudly stand behind this measure and believe it will strongly benefit our great city. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Amanda Blackwood, President and CEO of the Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Kevin. Every day, our members, business owners and leaders are held accountable to their customers and stakeholders for results. Their business success depends on how efficiently they allocate their dollars and how effectively they meet their customers' needs. The Metro Chamber is strongly supportive of the Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act, as it creates the same level of accountability, holding the chief executive, in this case our elected mayor, responsible and accountable for making efficient decisions around how and where city operations are funded and how effectively resident and business needs are met. During this time of disruption, we have an opportunity to step into the challenges before us and build back better. Every day, our business owners and leaders are responding to this challenge by streamlining their operations, adapting to changing environments and behaviors, and critically looking at how to best revamp the old way of doing business and stepping into the new normal. The time is right for our city government to do the same. The time is right because in 2018, our report on Sacramento's future economic prosperity, the Brookings Institute said clearly that governance plays an essential role in the overall economic health of a region, and that governance structures that allow for high quality public-private partnerships to thrive experience greater economic vitality. And the time is right because this needed change supports the Metro Chamber's 4-point business promise. We've made a commitment to strong business, vibrant community, connected region, and a ready workforce so that we can create inclusive economic development opportunities, which are essential to the economic recovery of this region. This need for this commitment has never been greater. And the time is now. Just like the majority of the 35 metro areas similar in size to Sacramento that utilize an executive mayor form of governance, our business community deserves a more responsive, effective, and efficient city government with direct levels of accountability and transparency from our elected mayor. This is why we've supported this initiative in the past and why we strongly support it now. With that, I am pleased to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Pat Fong-Kushida, President and CEO of the Sacramento Asian Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Amanda, and I am pleased to be here today in support of this initiative and with my colleagues. The Sacramento Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce supports the Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act because the status quo just isn't working. Now is the time to make a change. It's what our people deserve. There was a time when the needs of minority communities could easily be ignored. Places in our city where there was never an economic recovery, where minority-led businesses, often family-owned, just like my own family's grocery business, struggled to keep their doors open as neighborhoods decay from disinvestment while people with capital look the other way. We are today standing up, standing together, recognizing our power. We are the new minority majority. We are fighting for access, for investment and involvement for our minority communities. We must bring government closer to the people. We must involve local residents in decisions that impact their daily lives. This is not just a hallmark of better governance, but the path to building a truly inclusive economic environment for everyone. Thank you. And now let me introduce Dr. Tecoy Porter, pastor of Genesis Church and president of Sacramento National Action Network. Dr. Porter.
Thanks, Pat. Since the founding of the National Action Network, we have fought diligently and tirelessly to achieve one standard of justice, decency, and equal opportunities for all people, especially in the areas of criminal justice reform and police accountability. And since the tragic slaying of George Floyd, and even before with that of Stephon Clark, many in our country and community have called for fundamental change in the city's approach to public safety, including increasing transparency and accountability in the police department and shifting resources away from police to better mental health and community counseling service. The reason for this is simply because what is working now is not working. Too many Black and brown citizens are being treated unjustly and have been abused due to police who choose to wrongly use their position to enact racial violence under the cover of law. Albert Einstein said, "We cannot solve problems by using the same type of thinking we used when we created them." The Bible puts it this way: "We cannot place new wine into old wineskins, for it will destroy both the old and the new. In the same manner, we cannot expect systemic change to occur without making changes to the systems and structures in our city government that has allowed these conditions to come about. And this is why I am supporting this initiative for a more accountable government. These changes will give the position of mayor the ability to deliver what is being demanded of him and allow voters to hold him accountable if he doesn't. So now please receive up next, Nikky Mohanna, who is the principal of the Mohanna Development Company. Nikky?
Thank you, Dr. Porter. We are facing unprecedented times and a crisis that is not going to get solved through the traditional methods of our bureaucracy. We need this reform to ensure that our electeds are held accountable and can react quickly to the increasing challenges in housing and homelessness that have been exacerbated by our recent events. We need smart, innovative housing solutions that can be implemented quickly, with inclusive economic empowerment as a top priority. This initiative is paramount to our success as a community in how we move forward to house our most vulnerable, while leading with implementable innovation at the forefront. With that, I'd like to introduce Natalia Chavez, urban planner and local government consultant.
Thank you, Nikky. Many Sacramento residents don't feel as though they have a say in how city funds are spent. So we need to establish a process that gives residents the ability to provide direct input on the projects and proposals that are funded by the city. We can do this through participatory budgeting. This is a community-driven budgeting process that has been implemented in various cities such as New York, Vallejo, and Boston. Participatory budgeting engages people that are usually not represented in policy decisions, such as youth and people of color. This is a democratic decision-making process that we need to adopt in Sacramento. Participatory budgeting can fulfill the promise that Measure U dollars will go towards inclusive economic development goals, which will help Sacramento's low-income communities. City dollars are even more constrained right now due to COVID-19, but that's the reason why now, more than ever, we need communities to come together and decide how to spend part of the city's budget. With that, I'd like to introduce Keishaun Turner, lead academic mentor for Improve Your Tomorrow.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Keishaun Turner, and I work as a lead mentor for Improve Your Tomorrow at Jackman Middle School. I am a South Sacramento native who is passionate about improving the outcomes for young men of color. I have been working with local government and working with my community since my junior year of high school, doing internships, planning and working community events, and witnessing my community change. After living my experiences as a Black man in Sacramento, I cannot thank you all enough for allowing me to be here. With that said, it is time for a change. I represent not only myself and my family name, but the identity of a marginalized portion of the community who feels skeptical about my city government politics. My experiences with racism and lack of resources in my community grow exponentially larger with every Black male you talk to in my community. I am one of many who want to see this community change for the better. I am a man who wants to see improvement with resources in my community. I want more transparency, access to decisions, and leaders who truly care about the people in which they serve. This is why I know I support the Mayor Accountability and Community Equity Act. This does what I want to see change in my community by providing more transparency and accountability with city leadership. It provides funding for the youth, which allows them access to more resources to improve their lives. This change is needed to create opportunities for all young people, especially boys of men of color. Thank you, and it is now my pleasure to introduce Jim Gonzalez, the chair of the Latino Economic Council of Sacramento.
Jim, can you unmute yourself, please? Jim?
Sorry about the mute problem. Thank you so much, and I'm very proud to join my colleagues on this call, looking for an end to the benign neglect that has too often happened in the neighborhoods and emerging communities of Sacramento. The Latino Economic Council of Sacramento was formed to create an atmosphere where the Latino community no longer has to face bureaucracy and then be told that they're barking up the wrong tree. We think that creating a system where the mayor and the city council are co-equal partners and that we can hold them accountable for their promises is vital. The Sunshine Ordinance and the Ethics Commission will become permanent under this proposed Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act. And sunshine is what cures democracy and transparency, and an ethics commission that will not allow developers to have a bigger voice in gentrifying our communities. It's time for us to have transparent government, and this does it and holds the mayor and the city council accountable for it. Thank you.
All right. Yes, I want to thank all the many voices that have shared here. This is our growing coalition in support of the Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act. We have indicated why we think it's important for our community now. I want to thank you all for participating. I do want to acknowledge the young man, and that Michael Lynch, the CEO and president of Improve Your Tomorrow, is also joining in with us. And thank you for bringing the fine young man to speak. With that concludes our formal presentations. And now we will be open for questions from the press. And so with that, press, please join us. And I'm gonna look to Danelle to tell us who has the first question.
Good morning. Can I ask each one of you representing the media to use the hand raise in participants? I'll call up on you to unmute yourself, to state your name and your outlet and whom your question is directed to.
Thank you for that clarification. Do you have a first question yet?
I'm looking to see, not as of yet.
I see Lonnie Wong has turned on his video. Does he have a question? Okay, if you could bear with us for a minute. I see.
Still no questions.
Okay, if you have your video on and your media and you want to ask a question, then maybe you can just like show me your hand. And I see Lonnie Wong is raising his hand. So please share your question.
Yeah, Cassandra, I guess money talks in politics, and it seems like some of the critics of a strong mayor form of government feel that because the focus of power is going to be directed at one person, that they'll be more susceptible to campaign donations and influenced by special interests, whether that be community members or developers or business interests or certain neighborhood interests. How do you counter that argument? That basically people will ignore the council and spend all their money and attention to the mayor.
Jim, did you want to take that question?
Yes, I mean, if you look at the city's website on the Sunshine Ordinance and the Ethics Commission, you can see that there have been notable attempts with a lobbyist registration law and a variety of other reforms in it. What we're hoping the Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act will do will actually create an active ethics commission, a permanent ethics commission that will create rules to avoid exactly what you're saying. Too many cities have been caught in pay-to-play politics, and part of this reform that we're talking about is to make sure that pay-to-play does not happen in Sacramento.
I have another question. You know, there have been other critics that are saying this proposal, although it's a community coalition, has not tapped into other input. the League of Women Voters that played a big role in the former strong mayor proposal has not heard of it, and other neighborhood people said that they haven't had a chance to vet this as opposed to the last proposal, which went through weeks and months of discussion in various open forum community groups. Are you rushing to judgment here in instituting something that's going to be written in stone and may have unintended consequences?
Well, I would suggest that the timing is right now, and this coalition is growing. We are having lots of conversations. We will continue to have conversations. I think until there is a timeline in August that we want to meet in order to put it on the ballot. So we are welcoming input now. And then I think we want the people to really speak and say whether this is something that they're ready for.
Antonio Harvey has the next question.
Okay, Antonio.
Yes, good morning. The last time this was pushed through, I believe it was Measure L, it failed miserably. So what makes this coalition thinks that this time around that the voters are going to buy into it? And the reason why I say that, because I've seen the draft. I read the draft. It doesn't look too much different than the one that was presented 5 or 6 years ago, other than the allocated $40 million that you spoke of at the beginning, Ms. Jennings. But what reason do you have to think that the voters are going to buy into it this time around?
Well, I'll start with an answer. Okay, Chet, you want to take this one?
Yeah, let me start, Cassandra, and then you can fill in behind me. Antonio, I want to first say that I think we all know we're living in a very different time. I started my remarks and I talked about the inefficiency and inability of government to be responsive to a pandemic, and that's only kind of representative of the kind of challenges government is having being responsive to the needs of community writ large. So while this was built off of a model that was presented several years ago, which I think is a good thing, because I think we're building off a lot of the input that was garnered through those particular processes. And I'm not suggesting that we're not looking for ongoing input in the coming weeks, as people may have reframed their thinking or advanced their thinking since that particular time. But clearly, if we have learned nothing else during the past 5 months, is that a lack of efficient government at any level is harmful to our ability to have the kind of city that I think Sacramentans believe that they actually want to live in. So I think those recent lessons, which are still upon us, suggest that we're in a very different time. Smarter, hopefully more capable, and more willing to take the dramatic steps that need to be taken to create a more inclusive, a more equitable city than the one that we're living in currently.
Okay, I just want to follow up on that. What campaign efforts will be taken this time around as far as outreach and getting the community to get a little bit more understanding of how the strong mayor proposal will work?
Cassandra?
Yes.
Would it be outreaches? Would it be workshops? I know that, it has to go to the city council and they have to vote on it and things like that. But like I said, you have to get these people to buy into it.
Well, go ahead, Cassandra, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead, Chet.
No, we're looking to replicate and improve upon the strategy that we used before. In no way should this be viewed as a small number of community leaders trying to kind of push forward an idea that doesn't have or hasn't been fully vetted with community. I think we're saying two things or three things. One is the change needs to happen. It needs to happen now, and it needs to be done in ways that are inclusive. And so that this notion of accountability is something that we all have an ability to help shape. And while the timeline is short, there's an old saying, patience is for the privileged. And we're saying here today that we're tired of being patient. that we're going to push for change. We're willing to listen to all voices, but what we're not willing to do is wait and to defer the dream of a more inclusive city here in Sacramento.
I just want to add that this coalition is a strong coalition, a coalition that's going to continue to grow. And after the city council considers this and places it on the ballot, we are committed to organizing and being part of a very inclusive campaign. We believe, and we've talked to our friends and neighbors and co-workers, that there is a lot of support by the voters for this proposal. And as Chet has mentioned, the time is now.
I have one last question, if you will. What other cities in the state of California has strong mayor, and have you studied their policies, and has it been pretty much effective for those municipalities?
In times of crises, strong mayor cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Fresno, and others have found the model successful, and we're continuing to do that research. But again, we are looking at legislation in other communities where this model has been successful, especially in times of crisis.
San Antonio, you can look to Los Angeles, San Diego, Fresno, and I lived in Oakland when we did the same thing. And I can say it has dramatically improved both accountability and the inclusion and involvement of community around similar issues that we're confronting here in Sacramento.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for those answers. The next question. Are there other questions from the media?
So if no one else is asking, can I ask a few? It's Foon from the News and Review.
Hi, Foon. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Please.
So I had some key computer problems at the beginning, so I apologize if this has already been answered, but can someone specify exactly what powers the mayor would have under this plan that he doesn't have right now?
Well, as I indicated, the role of the mayor would be able to appoint the city manager, subject to confirmation by the council. Also, that role would propose a budget 90 days before the end of the fiscal year. And in that role, they would have the ability to veto ordinances and budget items, but it would also be subject to a 2/3 override vote by the council. And that position would also have the ability to remove the city manager.
But the police chief would still be hired by the city manager?
The rest of the structure would be in place, yes.
So is it the strategy here to add the other reforms to perhaps get support from folks who might be opposed to strong mayor alone?
The strategy here is to address some major issues in our city. And one is the mayoral accountability, and the other is community equity. You will see that in the proposal, we have created and we want to solidify the racial and gender equity lens that cannot be changed at the flip of a hat, but that will be included in the charter. The participatory budgeting process would be something that would be spelled out in the charter that will be carried on regardless of who's in that position and the other items. So it is really to change the key elements of the charter that will support a very inclusive and participatory government.
And then one final one, do you have the votes right now on the council to put this on the ballot?
That will be taken up at city council in the coming weeks.
So the answer is you don't necessarily have the votes right now, or are you talking to the council members?
we as a coalition are presenting this, and in the world that I come from, the vote happens at the city council meeting, and that's where we are hopeful to get a positive vote to put it on the ballot.
Okay, thank you.
There are no additional questions showing at this time.
Okay. Again, we will see if there are any more questions. If not, we are here in solidarity and growing. Education and outreach is going to be huge. We are doing that every day and will continue throughout. This is about the Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act that would then really sustain and hold accountability for the city of Sacramento. With that, if we don't see any other questions. Yes, I think there's one from Lena. Okay, Lena.
Hi there, good morning. This is Lena Howland. I'm with ABC 10. I just had a quick question for you guys. I noticed that you did bring up the possibility of creating a 9th council district. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that in detail of what you expect to come out from that, how creating that new district could change things for the city?
Well, I think, and this is really taken off from previous studies in the way that the creation of a 9th district would help with representation, because rather than having 8, you would then have 9 districts, and it would be proportionate to that. It would also bring balance to the city council in order to perform. And as Antonio had asked the question, we have looked at many models across the country, as well as in California, and this would be consistent with that. Is there anybody else that would like to weigh in on that answer? And you know, there will be a citizens review or redistricting commission that was done through the ballot initiative some while ago. So when they're doing the 2020 census, they would be able to really draw the lines for that district as well. So the timing is very good in that aspect.
I just want to add that the goal here is to make the mayor and the city council more co-equal. And by having 9 members and creating the need for a 2/3 majority of those votes for major decisions like a budget override. All of that is, as Cassandra said, modeled on other cities, but what we're talking about here is that we'll have a president of the city council. And from our view of presidents of board of supervisors and city councils in other cities, that really does help create the checks and balances and the co-equality that we want, and also makes us nimble in making issues come to the fore and be resolved.
Okay, and I'm not sure, Lena, do you want to unmute yourself? Yes.
Yes, I do have one more question for Keishaun Turner, our youth perspective from the South Sacramento community. I really appreciated what you had to say, and I'm glad that you are a part of this briefing today. With what you said earlier, I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how you believe these changes could improve your future and the future of your friends and the people you grew up with in the South Sacramento community.
So I believe strongly that the Mayor Accountability and Community Equity Act it provides a lot more transparency with local government, with the community. And a lot of my people that I grow up and I know in this community, they don't have trust in the government. They don't have a lot of trust in the things that they see. So with this act created, seeing that there's actually money that's going to be poured in that they can see, and seeing that there's going to be certain decisions made based on this act if it's passed. It allows for more transparency for the community to just see exactly what's going on rather than having to search through different news articles and see who's right and who's wrong. And just it allows for a clear view and an easier pathway for the community to see everything going on.
Thank you, Keishaun. Thank you, Lena, for that question. I think we're gonna go one more round and then we can close it out. Any other questions from the media? If you aren't using the chat or the raised hands, you can certainly show yourself or unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, hearing no other questions. Again, we want to thank the press for joining, and we want to thank this growing and very committed coalition to really coming forward and moving forward on the Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act. Thank you all. Thank you for your time and your commitment to continuing to improve in our city. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Good day to all of you.